Welcome to Student Affairs Shares, where we share tips and tricks from student affairs professionals working in the field. Today, I'm going to share with you the insights and recommendations of Brianna King, the Director of Admissions and Student Services at Binghamton University's College of Community and Public Affairs. Brianna and I talked a lot about her recommendations for effective presentations, since in her role as a recruiter and admissions director, she's required to regularly speak with the public in a variety of settings. 4 times a year, Brianna speaks to groups as large as 50 to graduate students entering either the student affairs or the public administration graduate programs at the College of Community and Public Affairs. In order to present this group with all the important details and resources to succeed in their studies in these programs, Brianna has to invest a substantial amount of time. She has to wrangle all the right voices from campus, including faculty members from the departments, career services staff, and various student services representatives, as well as librarians, program alumni, and more, to make sure that the students have a very insightful presentation. She must then skillfully arrange the day to make sure students are consistently engaged, appropriately fed, and kept relatively active to avoid disengagement. She talked about the need to read her audience and to react to the energy in the room. She does her best to advise the faculty and other guest speakers to keep things engaging, and she acknowledged that active engagement is not something that all of her guests have in mind when coming to speak to the incoming students. In fact, at one of her most recent orientations, she received some negative feedback from a student who she had a relationship with that was strong enough that the student felt that she could be quite unwavering in her feedback. This student told Brianna that she was literally bored to tears throughout the day. She said that the fact that they were kept in the same room for the entire orientation, full-day event, made it especially hard to keep focused. And some of the speakers simply shared too much information in too much detail and didn't have visuals or any kind of other activities to keep it interesting. So Brianna explained that indeed she understands that some people aren't naturally engaging speakers. She does her best to bring relevant information and handouts that she expects students will need to take with them in order to keep track of all the new details they're receiving in the day, in case instructors don't do that for themselves. And she did say, gosh, there's so much information being thrown at these students all at once. It's all really also important. And so she does her best to prepare handouts and other materials and anticipate the needs that instructors and other guests will have for their presentation. She's currently considering the idea of letting people take 10-minute breaks during those full-day events to step away from the meeting space as a way to address the concern that was raised by that student and potentially others about being captive. But she pointed out the benefit of maintaining a captive audience versus the risk of people potentially leaving early when they're given the opportunity to stray from the larger group. Because Brianna's very committed to creating an orientation that's both informative and interesting enough to be memorable, she requests and takes seriously feedback from students about these events. And she's a big proponent of taking the temperature of her audience and adjusting her presentation based on what they are most enthusiastic about and interested in. This approach is actually especially important in her most frequent type of presentation, which is recruitment events. Brianna recruits for the graduate programs both within Binghamton University as well as at regional and SUNY recruitment events out in the community. She does presentations at least once a month, either in the college or out in the field. The most obvious element that contributes to Brianna's success as a recruiter is her belief in the program. As an alumni of Binghamton University's Human Development Bachelor's Program, as well as the Student Affairs Administration Program, Brianna has had firsthand knowledge about the perks of the institution. She spoke specifically about the fact that the mission of the CCPA aligns very perfectly with her value system as a person and as a professional. And it makes it really easy for her to speak with confidence that about the programs that she's recruiting for. She said, "I don't need to chase anyone to convince them to come to Binghamton University. We're an we're a Research One institution. We're in a beautiful, centrally located area with a medium-sized program that feels a lot like a small program. And it allows for quality faculty interactions and peer connections, not to mention there's a really great cost of living here. And so with that, Brianna doesn't chase people down. What she does is she reads the temperature of the people that she's talking to. She makes sure to share pertinent information, and then she senses whether or not they want to hear more. She highlights institutional qualities and doesn't feel insecure or insincere or overly selly when she does it, because she believes in it. She shares the key features of the programs and then waits for the audience to ask for more details. She comes prepared to talk at length about the institution in general and about the program specifically, but she doesn't push unwanted information on her audience. She applies the same philosophy of taking her participants' temperature and adjusting her presentation after that. Finally, presenting to faculty and administration is another annual event at things like the contribution to mission meetings. It's the most stressful kind of presentation that Brianna does each year. There are at least 10 key administrators that she speaks to, including the provost. They're all listening to her while she speaks. She's pretty intimidated, she admits. She says it's nothing like presenting to high school students or even Binghamton University students in an HDEV class. In this case, she says, preparation is absolutely key. She comes with all the pertinent details and data, enrollment numbers, graduation rates, student outcomes, various programs that have been working and why they're working. She anticipates what might be asked, and she fills in all the gaps that the department chair that she's working with and presenting at these meetings to might be looking for her to fill. She's both a leader and a supporting player at these meetings, and she has to move quite skillfully between these two roles. Thank goodness these presentations are just once a year. In looking over Brianna's presentation pointers, there are a couple keys to success that shine through for any presentation type. Number one, which seems obvious, but we don't ever spend enough time on, is be prepared. Do your homework. Know everything you need to know about whatever it is you're presenting on. And be prepared to only share part of it. Know your topic, your facts and figures, and be ready to offer more if the group wants it. Be invested in what you're talking about is the second key. In the way that Brianna values the institution and her experience and the mission behind the institution, you have to have confidence and belief in what you're saying and the value of it. And then you need to prioritize that information. Present vital details first, and then feel for interest before moving on. You'll never have enough time, Brianna said, to go over everything you hoped to cover. So make sure you prioritize and anticipate questions. This was a really important lesson for me, and luckily I did this interview with Brianna before my group presentation. This little bit of information put me at ease when a couple of the team members in my group at our training elicited such an interest from our attendees with their sections that we weren't able to devote as much time as we had originally planned to our sections. I found myself in that moment hearing Brianna's words and taking a deep breath and adjusting. So, thanks for listening to Student Affairs Shares. Thanks for spending some time to reflect on the key tips from Brianna for offering wonderful presentations. And thanks for being patient as I muddle through all this. I'm still growing.